I'm going to start grinding this door skin off now. Always make sure you got your eyes and ears protected when you're doing this kind of work. It's very dangerous. Don't try and rush it, just take your time, work slowly. You don't want to grind too much and start cutting the flange that's on the door shell. You just want to get through the skin of the door itself. Okay, I've only been grinding this seam for about 5 minutes or less now, and this is what it's starting to look like. I did jam this little straight edge scraper into the seam just to show you what happens. You don't have to grind too much. You can start working this thing along, moving it along, and you'll be able to separate the flange from the door skin just with a flat bladed scraper or some other kind of a tool. So don't grind too hard, don't grind too much. If I come around the corner, you can look at this edge. You know, you don't want to over grind it and start taking off the flange. Let me see if I can tip this up and show you the back side of the door there. You can see that the flange underneath, there's a little bit of a gap where the flange underneath ends and this rolled over edge on the skin is. So the underneath flange on the door shell is not right in the corner of the crease on the door skin. So you don't want to overgrind it and cut into that flange on the door shell itself. Alright, here's the bottom edge. I got the camera jacked up in the air, and hopefully you'll be able to see how easy it is just to split this seam. I ground it for another minute after I stood it up on the edge of this bucket. Get a lot of rust coming out of here. I know I'm going to have some trouble at this front corner because it's probably not even on the camera. This front edge is where we welded on that patch, and I actually had to weld right to the corner of the door. So I know there's really no seam there. It's just weld metal. So I'm not gonna grind a lot there. I'm going to cut the skin on the top and then get most of it off, and then I'll look and see when I have a better vantage point how much I want to cut off of the skin and what I'm going to do about that flange. So I'm not going to over grind that corner and mess it all up. But let me turn it over now and start doing this other edge. Alright, I finished grinding through the door skin edge and separating it with the flat scraper. Now I just have two little areas that I have to address. The first one is right here in this corner. I have to cut a little weld bead off to get the skin off. And then the other one is these two tabs that attach the skin to the door shell. The vent window and the runner for the door glass goes down in the middle of these two tabs. So since we're going to be cutting the skin off and throwing it away, we want to leave as much material on the door shell as we can. So when I cut these tabs, I'm going to cut them as close to the door skin as I can so that I leave as much of the material attached to the door shell behind. Then I can always trim it later, or lengthen it, shorten it. But you don't want to cut it in the middle, or you don't want to cut it really close to the door shell, because then you've taken everything off when you throw the skin away, and somehow you'd have to figure out a way to replace it onto the door shell. So always cut closest to the piece that you're going to throw away. You can always go back later and touch it up. Alright, now this skin should basically just peel off. There might be a couple of places where it gets stuck, but there's really nothing left holding it on. Something is stuck on this side, so I'm going to take another look at that, and we'll come right back and figure out how to get this thing off. Took about 30 seconds to solve that mystery. There's a bolt in here that holds the vent window into the door. When we took the vent window out, I put the bolt back in the hole so I wouldn't lose it, and right now that bolt is holding. There's a tab attached to the door skin, so it's holding the skin in up at the top. So I just have to take out this bolt, and then pretty much the door skin will come off, except down here at this lower corner where it's kind of all welded onto the door. And then we'll cut it off and clean that area up. So let me get this bolt out. Now the bolt is out. Skin should come off. I don't want to just try and rip this off of here because I might bend the flange on the door shell. So I'm going to be very careful when I try and take this thing off that I don't damage that lip. See if I can twist it, just kind of pop those welds by twisting it. Alright, that'll work. You can see it's just holding on by this tail. Let me just cut this off. Alright. The door skin has been separated from the door shell. we still have to cut off this tab and weld it onto the new skin, and we still have to flip over the door shell and clean up the flange for the door skin. This is a some kind of like a fiber board that was used. There's a stiffener here in the door shell, and this stiffener has this fiber board that's actually stapled to it, and it's, I guess it's supposed to stop the skin from rattling against this stiffener bar. But you can see over time it degrades and it winds up sticking to the inside of the door shell. Here are those tabs I was talking about. When I cut off the tabs, I left as much material on the door shell as I could. These guys got cut off flush. Let me pick that skin up. You can see those two things were right here. There's nothing left. I cut that flush with the edge of this door skin. I do have to save this piece. They don't put this stiffener and this threaded hole on the new door skins. You have to take the old one off, clean it up, and weld it back onto your new one. So we'll measure exactly how far it is, where it's installed on this car. What's important is not this hole, but where this bolt goes. So you measure from some point on here that you can reference on the other door skin, maybe from this front lip or something, to the center line of that hole. And then the other thing you want to measure is how far down the hole is from the top, because this stiffener just goes underneath this lip, and you can raise and lower it and move it left and right. So if you just come in here and cut this thing off and don't measure anything, when you go to put it back on the new one, you'll be scratching your head asking exactly where does it go. So just take a couple of minutes, measure it up first.